Okay, we are live. We are live. So, welcome. This is the Ross Local Schools Wednesday, August 26th. We are going to tackle online. Okay, we are live. We are live. So, welcome. This is the Ross Local Schools Wednesday, August 26th. We are going to tackle
Sarah?
online. Robin, I'm muted. It's muted.
Just close out the tab, Sarah. There you go.
For those of you just joining, we're streaming live to YouTube. We're working out the kinks. Sarah's doing it for her first time. She's doing great. So just bear with us here while we get the stream process going. Well, now you muted yourself, Sarah, so we can't hear you. Hopefully, you guys are seeing that like snafus happen to everybody. So if it happens to you in your classroom, it's all right. It happens to us too. We'll work through it and we'll be back up here with Sarah in just a minute.
Do I close the tab?
Hopefully,
Yes, close it out for right now. There you go.
Okay, Sarah, if you're talking, I think
it had opened in another tab, Robin. I had two tabs open and I didn't know. But I closed them both out. Is that a problem?
Nope.
I thought Becky was talking. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm being so rude. Okay, I apologize. That was all right. So it's online course organization, guys. We'll take two. Here we go. Welcome. Becky, you want to just go ahead?
Absolutely. So, thanks, Sarah. Hey, I think this is a good moment to be reflective a little bit and think about whenever we're talking about new learning for ourselves or for our students. So there's always that, kind of that J curve of something's new and we're trying it out and being vulnerable ourselves because we haven't done something before. But the first time is always bumpy. The second time is better. And then the more we do it, the better we get with it. So it's that whole idea, as educators, as students, that we try new things, we persevere, we maybe J curve down, but then come back up. So thanks, Sarah, for modeling that and demonstrating that for us today. I appreciate it. All right, so I also appreciate everybody's time here this morning. Thank you very much for taking the time to participate in these TEACHnology, these learning sessions. You will find them to be very, very beneficial. They are being recorded so that you can rewatch them and that someone who wasn't able to participate today will have access to them with asynchronous learning. So part of today is going to be thinking about our vocabulary and the difference between synchronous and asynchronous as we move into blended learning for this year. So I'm going to do a little bit of an introduction and provide some context. The video that I put out, what's on the spreadsheet is big picture, but let me just give a little bit more. So usually in a school year, the piece that's most consistent is the schedule. So we have our academic calendar. We know the first day of school, we know our breaks, we know our last day of school. We may have a couple of snow days here and there. We know we have cold and flu season. We may have kids popping out. That is typically the most consistent piece that we have. This year, our schedule is probably the least consistent piece. It's the piece that we don't know exactly what's going to be in store for us as we move through this year. So because of our actual calendar, the learning environment really being something that we're not going to be able to predict because of COVID, then what we take a look at as a district is how can we provide some consistency? So if we don't know if we're going to be face-to-face, we don't know closure, any other structure, where can we put that structure and that consistency within our learning environment? And the places that we can do this is within our LMS. So we are taking that usual consistency of calendar and making a consistent learning environment. So for this year, that predictability for families, for students, for you, is going to come within a place that has stretch. And that's where our 3 goals really are grounded this year. So our 3 goals of everybody, well, the goal of everyone using an LMS. So K12, K4 teachers will be using Google Classroom, and then 512 will continue using Schoology. So, but then we're also overlaying consistent course structure so that every teacher, K through 12, will consistently be building their courses within that LMS. Again, with the intention of making that our consistency if we don't know what our learning environment's going to be as far as face-to-face or not. So within that course structure, having consistent course organization, consistently using that course calendar, and then building online community. So you can hear over and over and over again that whole idea of consistency, and using that as a place that will be our anchor as we move forward. So the professional learning that we'll be engaging with today live, or someone will be doing asynchronously if they weren't able to be here today, it's all research based. If you have had the opportunity to work with Caitlin Tucker previously, read her work, or in the blended learning course, then you're going to see some familiarity. Then look at this as affirmation. So it's not so much that this is new learning for you, but it's affirmation of that learning that you've already done and already feel is good, high quality research-based instruction. If you haven't been able to participate in the blended learning course, then you're going to have some incredible resources that are shared with you not only today, but as we continue throughout the year. So the consistency is designed to make life easier for students, families, and staff. The goal is to create a blended learning environment that will support and will stretch any transition. So if we're in face-to-face, this consistency is going to work. If a student is in quarantine for 14 days and can't be in class, then they're going to be able to keep up with coursework because there's consistency there. If we need to move into a remote learning model, or for some reason a hybrid model, then we have that consistency that's there in place. So staff members, students, families will be able to very quickly find materials and resources. They'll know from week to week what to do and where to go, because we're building that consistent structure in. The blended learning checklist will give some clear direction as to what those expectations are. And so, really, and again, I'm going to go back to that word consistency. This year, more than ever, we need to have that shared district understanding of what that predictable structure is. Again, so we are, our hashtag is Ross Better Together. And of course, that's aspirational, but that is also practical. And it's practical in that if we have the same vision and the same direction, we can support one another and support our students and staff. So, and families. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our tech team, who has done an amazing job of taking some of this blended professional learning and making it relevant to Ross. So it's not like it is relevant to everybody, but it's also most relevant to us. So thank you for your time. I'm going to sit back and learn along with Sarah, Trish, Robin, and each of you today.
Okay, I'm going to take back over for a moment. Please remember that you can count this as professional credit on your IPDIP. Jessica, I believe, sent out an email that went over this in detail. Jessica, if you're around, please correct me if I'm wrong.
I sent it to Elda, but not the other buildings.
Do you want to just real quick, since you're here, I hate to put you on the spot. But.
No, you're fine. So I think we pretty much said, like, when we're doing these live things on Zoom, we can count this on our district PD log. And then anything that you guys do that's through TLH, through the Learn section, those links are on that agenda as well. There are directions on there for how you can print out kind of like a log that shows that you participated, if that makes sense. So that'd be a different activity. You can put those in as a separate workshop conference, and then what we're doing right now can just go on your district PD log.
Thank you, Jessica. And if you have questions, feel free to email Jessica. She's your girl. Thank you. Okay, so Trish, I'm gonna boot it to you.
All right, I had to unmute myself there. Thank you. Well, we are gonna kind of dive right into some of this content here. Becky, thank you so much for that introduction. I couldn't have said it any better. I never can, because you're always fantastic at wording things in a way that makes sense to everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. I'm going to pull up our checklist. Let's see here. Yep, that should be the right screen. All right, can everybody see the digital classroom checklist? That's up on my screen. Okay, perfect. So like Becky mentioned, what we are doing is trying to find a consistent way to communicate with students, to communicate with families, to communicate with each other, where it's in a consistent place, a format, and everybody is doing this together. So I'm sure everybody has kind of taken a look at this ahead of time, and you may have some questions, and we can get to those as we go through. I'm going to run down what this checklist is all about and the Your Toolbox tab, and then we're going to get into the course organization content for our session today. So this checklist is designed to keep everybody on task and organized, okay? It's really satisfying if you actually click on the little check boxes. You get a nice little check mark there to says, you know, yep, it's done, it's complete. It's just for your reference. This isn't, you're not turning this into anybody. If you want to make your own copy, you can click here and do that. And then you can check it off, you know, as you go through. The great thing is, for most of you, you can already check off this first element because you're already using Schoology and Google Classroom, which is fantastic. The next piece is that class calendar. Okay, so that goes for Google Calendar for Google Classroom, and our Schoology course calendars within Schoology. And like Becky mentioned, I know many of you already do this, so it's really not anything new. It's just something that we are, you know, reaffirming. We're reiterating here that it is a great way to communicate with students and families. So we can put due dates on those calendars for projects, events. You can put homework directions. You can even add links in the narrative and in the details for the assignments in those calendar events. So we're going to talk all about that in our calendar session that is coming up later this afternoon, as well as Sarah for Google Classroom. So we'll cover all of those pieces there. The big takeaway from this checklist is that we are all using those to communicate classroom events with our students and families. Course organization is the next chunk here, and we're going to talk about that in more detail in just a few minutes. So I'm going to skip over that part and jump down to the creating a community. So what this part is all about, everybody every year does a fantastic job of creating a community built on kindness, respect, and trust in their classroom. We need to build that online as well. So, you know, I know we're coming back 5 days a week, but like Becky mentioned, this year is going to be a little bit unpredictable. And even when we're there 5 days a week, we might have students that are on quarantine and that are working from home, or that are sick and that need to catch up, or staff members that need to go home and work from home because they're quarantined, or we might have to pivot and go to a, you know, remote setup very quickly. So creating that community online ahead of time, like starting from day one, is really going to help if when we do have to pivot and you've got some kids working from home while you're still teaching face-to-face, you know, when they're used to doing those assignments online and they have that same structure for trust and respect and kindness online as they do in the classroom, that's going to make that transition much, much easier. So we've got a session built for that too. We're going to do that after this one. So please stick around and join us for that as well, to learn how you can create those communities both in person and online. And the bottom part here, this whole checklist is kind of broken down into two sections. It's the must-haves out of the top, you know, these required elements here that we all need to be consistent with, which is going to help, really, it is. I know some of you are looking at this and thinking this is awesome. Some of you may be a little bit more apprehensive, but I just want to point out that when we're all doing this, it'll be a learning curve at first for us and our students, but in the end, it's going to help. We're going to get less questions from students and parents saying, I can't find this, I don't know where this is. Or, you know, where do I go to find out when this test is? Okay, because it's going to be the same answers coming from everybody. So it's going to make it easier when we're all doing this together. We are not alone in this. It's not one classroom teacher that has to teach their kids how to navigate through and find everything every year, because it's different. Every teacher is going to be going over these pieces. So it's going to sink in for the students a lot faster this way, which will result in less questions down the road for you. So like I said, this is designed to kind of make it easier on everybody, students, families, and staff. So this bottom part of the section here are kind of best practices or work towards. So we realize, you know, everybody's time is limited, and that's fine, and skill sets are different. If you want to dig deeper into any of these skills, you are welcome to go through and work through these resources on your own. So we've got strong video skills. We have a learn session that was developed in our Teaching and Learning Hub that takes you through a lot of different elements to design stronger instructional videos. If you want to go back and look at some of the pieces that we did in the spring, we have our WeVideo and Zoom webinars that we did. Those were recorded. You can go back and rewatch those and find the resources that go with those. Nobody's new to formative assessments. I get that. But they do look a little bit different during blended learning. So if we've got a Wakelet created, if you want to just read some articles about some differences and the importance of continuing with your formative assessments during blended learning, you're welcome to check those resources out. Student voice, or as Catlin Tucker calls it, agency, is huge. I mean, to be honest, it was huge before we went with all of this COVID craziness, but it's still big now, to get those students engaged, to get them more interested in their work, giving them choices and a voice to express their knowledge in their way really helps to get them on board with what you're doing. So if you want to learn some ways that you can incorporate more agency in your classrooms, we've got our spring webinars here, the choice boards. You can learn about why you might want to use choice boards. You can learn about how to create them and apply them. There's some great templates in here to get you started, and the resources linked from all of these courses. And then we also did a webinar in the spring called Level Up Your Lessons, and it was just some ways to make things a little bit more enticing, exciting, interactive. So feel free to take a look on any of those webinars. This bottom part here, online discussion. So Schoology has this tool built in. Talk to Sarah definitely if you are interested in doing this at the elementary level about Google Classroom. I know this is one that maybe a lot of people have used before because we've been face to face all the time. But it really can be a powerful tool to get students talking, whether you're face to face or online or both. Some of those students that may not want to raise their hand and speak out loud in the classroom will feel much more comfortable doing it online. So these are things that we can start right away, even when we are 5 days a week face to face. We don't need to wait. But if you want to learn more about that, there's a Schoology Support Center resource, and then there's a Wakelet about creating dynamic online discussions to really get students engaged and going. And that goes back to that creating an online community as well. We want to make sure that from day one, we're setting those expectations of what these communication pieces mean, what kind of language do we use. We talk kindly in the classroom, we talk kindly online. So again, feel free to take a look at any of these extra resources that are in here. And then one that we have that is a recommendation too, that some teachers find really helpful, this last one, when you're numbering your assignments, and this is completely optional, or when you're adding your assignments in, you could number them with number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4. That way, when they go into progress book, parents and students know exactly where they are on the list and what they're doing. It kind of gives you a sense of placement. If the assignment is number 25, and as a parent, you see your child working on assignment number 5, gives you a pretty good idea of where they are, in that list, and if they need to catch up or if they're right on track. So that is definitely just a suggestion. If you are interested in doing that, that can be really helpful as well. So that is our digital checklist. You again, make your own copy if you want to, have it here as a reference if you want to, but it just kind of simplifies everything. We're trying to be consistent and puts us all on the same page to make sure that we are incorporating all of these elements into our teaching and learning. And the next tab I want to go over briefly here is our toolbox. So with all of these suggestions, recommendations, requirements, whichever elements we're looking at, we wanted to provide some tools that were listed out for you so you can see right off the bat what the district is supporting and what we've purchased and what we're suggesting that you use. Many of you have your own digital toolbox kind of either in your head or that you've used in your courses for years, and that's great. We're not saying you need to change that. We're just giving you kind of a starting point and a reference point if you need some new ideas, or again, that affirmation that says, these are the tools I've been using, and yes, I'm on track. This is great. So we did purchase Zoom licenses for staff this year. We have WeVideo licenses for staff to make videos. We've always had our Schoology and Google Classroom learning management systems. We still, of course, have all of our Google Drive apps, which are awesome for in-class work. They're awesome for online collaboration. Those aren't new to any of us anymore. we're all pretty familiar with those, but don't forget, sometimes even the basics can still be enticing to students and activities. So we have our list of specialized tools for different curricular software. Like I said, if you've been in the district for a while, you're pretty familiar with all of these already. But I know sometimes, we've got teachers that have moved to different grade levels or different buildings. So it's just a nice place to kind of come back and look and make sure you're aware of all of the resources that are available to you. And then this bottom section here, these are free tools. Again, you are not required to use any of them, but they are available to you and they're available to students and they're great resources. And they've been vetted by your tech team, yay, and your curriculum department. So they're great ways to engage the students, to interact with them, to have them turn into creators and not just consumers. So take a look at any of these. If you've got questions, please let myself, Robin, and Sarah know. We are happy to help. We're here for you this year. You're not in this by yourself, and we are all in this together. So that is the overview quickly of the checklist and the toolbox. We can open it up for a couple quick questions if we have any, and then I believe we are going to dive into oh, you know what? Sorry, I skipped over the course organization. That's our whole meat and potatoes of this whole session. So we're going to come back here and I'm going to explain this, and then we're going to dive into what this actually looks like in each learning management system. All right, so course organization, that's what we're all here today to learn about. So thank you for listening to our introductions about all of this whole new school year here. Course organization is going to look a little bit different this year. I know in the past we've all had our own ways and we've developed wonderful ways to organize materials in Schoology and in Google Classroom, and none of those ways are wrong. This is not designed to say that what you were doing wasn't a good way. What this is designed to do is to put that course consistency online for all of us, our students, and our families, so we can find the resources. The reality is when your students are working online, your end goal is wanting them to find the resources that you're posting for them. You want them to quickly find the assignment that they're supposed to be working on. When everybody has a different way of organizing, maybe somebody uses units, somebody uses chapters, somebody uses weeks, and then they're having to click 8 folders down to find today's work. When you're in the classroom and you can explain that's how we navigate in my class, that's fine. But we don't know that that's really going to happen this year. So we want to make sure that everyone, parents included, can find the work for that week quickly and find it every week. So that doesn't mean that you have to totally reorganize your folder structure in Schoology or in Google Classroom. What we're asking is that on the homepage of your materials, you post a folder for each week, and it will be dated for the week of, September 8th through the 11th, or whatever week it is. And then within that folder, you are welcome to tuck in any of those folders that you have used in the past. So if you organize by unit and you're going to be going over unit 1, then tuck in unit 1's folder in that first week. Okay, you can tuck in folders and you can repeat resources from week to week. That's fine. Like I said, we're not asking that you totally redo your courses, just that you add those weekly folders and then just grab the folders or the resources that you're using for that week and pop them into those folders. So when the kids log in, they can very easily see, oh, that's this week. Great. That's where I need to go right now to find what I need. Okay. We're asking that you keep the newest folders on top. So otherwise, Schoology automatically puts new resources on the bottom. I'm not sure how Classroom does it. Sarah, I'm sure can chime in with that one. But we're asking that you move those up to the top. So, several weeks into the semester, the kids aren't scrolling down all the way down a big old list of weekly folders to find the most current one. Again, the goal is for them to find resources quickly and efficiently. Nobody wants to waste 5 minutes of everybody scrolling around in Schoology or in Google Classroom trying to find what they're working on. So if you put the most relevant information on the top, they're going to be able to find that the fastest. So that's what we're asking for that. We are also within that folder or actually as a page with inline text. Robin's going to show us how to do that in Schoology in just a minute, and Sarah's going to work with us up on similar situations for Classroom. We're asking that you provide a written overview and a short video overview of what you're working on for the week. Now, I know there's a question of, why are we doing this if we're face-to-face, right? But again, remember, we may not be face-to-face for very long. And even though you might be face-to-face, chunks of your classroom may not be face-to-face for very long. So if we start this now and we get in this habit now, You know, like Becky mentioned, anything new is going to have a J curve. It's going to be bumpy. It's going to be rocky. But I'll tell you, the more you do these videos, the faster they become. And they don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be long, and they don't have to be overly detailed. Okay, we're not asking for a 10-minute dissertation of every, you know, day of the week with exactly what you're going to do. This is quick. You know, what are the general topics you're working on this week? What are your focal points of the week? And if that has to change because, you know, you made this on, you know, on Friday, the week before, and by Wednesday, the next week, you're like, this is blown up. This week is not going the way I thought. That's okay. You know, this is not set in stone, but it is to provide that overview of those big picture goals to our students and families. So when they're looking at that weekly folder and they're looking at the assignments in it, they can say, okay, this is what we're working towards this week. And I can see how, you know, these assignments make sense, and we're on the right track, and this is where we're going. Again, the written overview doesn't have to be long. And actually, if you're going to write the overview out, it kind of gives you a script for your video overview, because they're going to match in the content. So short, to the point, not something to spend a ton of time on. And again, the more you do these videos, I've made a lot of tutorial videos for the kiddos, and at first they're clunky and I want it to be perfect and I don't want to stumble over any words. And then eventually the flow gets going and you just go, and they get easier and faster to do. So, you know, that's kind of what we're asking for the course organization. And so now I'm going to turn it over if we have any quick questions, and then we're going to jump into breakout rooms and show you exactly what that will look like and how to do that in Schoology and Google Classroom.
Trish, Brenda had a question. Can kids just click on the calendar to get the correct assignment? You want to address that?
Sure. Well, yeah, that is one way that the kids can get to the assignment, Brenda, but not all kids are going to just look at the calendars each time. And if you're creating the assignment in the calendar, even if it's not an assignment that you want to collect through Schoology, if it's, you know, you still want to post that as an assignment in your course, because again, it's that consistency, because that way the kids and the parents know, yes, I've got this listed in my course. And it's a great way, if you put it in your course, you can collect that work through Schoology as well. You know, whether it's a video, whether it's a picture of their work, if they're just snapping a picture of it, they can submit that through a Schoology assignment. Then they have that consistent place to turn it in. You have that consistent place to grade it and submit that feedback back to them. So yeah, they can click on it from the calendar, but we also need to list it in the course as well. But if you create an assignment in Schoology and give it a due date, it will automatically show up on your calendar. So you really don't have to put it in 2 different places. You can just create it in your course to begin with. And like I said, as long as it has a due date, it will show up on your calendar automatically.
Okay, well, that's what I did last year. And also, like, my videos got attached to it on that day as well. And
Right.
I even made the date be like a week long. So anytime they clicked on it in that week, then all the assignments and the videos would show up.
Right. So as long as you're creating those assignments in your course and adding those due dates, for you, it's one place, but for them, it's both, and they can see it. Because sometimes you might add things on your calendar too about your course that is not an assignment. It might be a project due date, or a test that's coming up, or a class celebration, or whatever it is. Sometimes those are going to be actual assignments, but sometimes they're just events. So that's why we kind of want to have it maintained in both areas. Great question. Anything else?
Lindsay has a question about, is it okay to have other school?
Robin,
Yeah, Sarah?
can we these, because they're Schoology specific, can we wait until we do the breakout
Yeah,
room?
let's do that. That sounds
Sure.
like a good idea.
And then that way they can ask you guys that, and my classroom people can ask me, and we'll all live happily ever after, I'm sure.
That's a good idea. Do we have any kind of more generic K12 questions that we can address before we break out?
No, but Trish, I do have a poll for us. This is
Oh,
just
fun.
fun. I'm gonna enable a poll, so people be ready. It's a hard-hitting question for this Wednesday morning, okay? Are you ready? Go ahead and answer this. I'm gonna give you 1 minute. And yes, I can see that people have or have not answered. Just saying. I'm watching you. Oh, good, we got 2. It's a tough question, I know.
I mean, to be fair though, mint cookies and cream is not listed on here, Sarah. So I don't know.
Well, something else, Trish, something else.
Yes, I'll pick my second favorite. Fine.
30 seconds in, people. Come on. $40 seconds in. 20 seconds left. I need 7 more votes.
We might have a couple of people coming in on a phone, so that might be a little harder to vote. We might not get all the way up to 34. I'm just saying.
As the host, I apparently don't get to vote, so
I don't get to vote either.
all right. I'm waiting for an ew gross one. Oh, time's up. Time's up. End poll. All right, let's see the results. People, we have a tie. Something else and vanilla. It's awesome. That's awesome. By the way, my vote would have been chocolate, but.
Mine would have been vanilla, so.
All right, so what we're going to do now, and I apologize, there are 2 Lisas in here, and I'm not exactly sure who these Lisas are. Like there's a Lisa at Elda, there's a Lisa at the middle school, actually 2 Lisas at Elda. So I'm not exactly sure which breakout room you should be going into. If you could pop in the chat, like Lisa, both Lisas, let me know where you're supposed to go. And I will try to get you in there very quickly, but I'm going to open up the room. Elementary teachers, you are sticking with me here in the main room. And then middle school, high school teachers, you are going to have the invite to the RMS and RHS teachers breakout room. You're going to go over there with Robin and Trish. Have no fear if you're watching this on the YouTube replay. Robin is going to record it, and then we will take that video that he records and we will tuck it right underneath this particular one if you're watching this through TLH. So you'll be able to see, if you're a middle school, high school teacher, you'll be able to watch that part. Just kind of fast forward through. I think we're aiming for about 10 minutes in the breakout rooms. So just kind of fast forward through 10 minutes when we all come back together. If you're watching this on the replay, and then watch the video down at the bottom. Okay, so I'm not sure who the Lisas are, so I'm just gonna go ahead and open the rooms. Elementary teachers, remember, you're sticking with me. And both Lisas, I think you're staying with me too, unless you tell me otherwise. So elementary peeps, hang out with me for a minute while they get over. Lisa, are you gonna stay with us? I know it's not Lap Dragonoff because hers has her last name on it. Okay, you're gonna be stuck with us, Lisa, if you don't tell me.
I'm here, Sarah. This is LD.
Right. I know you're here, but I've got 2 Lisas that have no last name in addition to you.
Oh, okay.
So I'm thinking one might be Lisa Asher, one might be Lisa Jeffrey, but no. All right. Elementary people in the house. Okay, so we wanted to break apart because I know that they're going to have Schoology specific questions that, while very, very similar to classroom, are not going to be identical to what we do in classroom. I also know that for us with Google Classroom, I'm going to guess that chances are like nobody has ever organized their classroom in this manner. And I've done a lot of thinking this summer. I've done a lot of reading. Like Becky said, I did the Catlin Tucker course, which definitely is geared more towards older students. But what I have really found and have really taken to heart is that we have to simplify for ourselves, number one, but more importantly for our students. And while we might assume, that our kids can and know where they should be going and all that, like when we're right there and we can stand over their shoulder, we got it in the bag. But the potential for us not being there, or for them not being there with us because they're at home for 2 days because they have strep, or they're at home for 14 days because they're quarantined, or X, Y, and Z, fill in the blank. We're going to have all those situations. Organizing your course by topics, meaning weeks, I think will just completely 100% simplify. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to open up a Google Classroom. And I want to just kind of go over, give you guys the opportunity to ask questions. I'll show you what I'm talking about when we talk about creating those as topics. And then we are a fairly small group. So if you want to, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your questions that way. Okay. Okay, so this is a generic Google Classroom. I'll also be using this on Friday so that when we do the how to collect online work and then how to do some of the grading in Google Classroom, we'll come back to this Google Classroom, and I've got some people that volunteered to be my students in here so that you can kind of see it a little bit better. So for course organization, we all understand the stream. This has a very social media-esque feel. What I will highly recommend that you do is to turn off posting to the stream. We found this, especially in the springtime, didn't think too much about it prior to there, but there is the ability that nothing gets posted to this stream other than these announcements that you share something with your class. And again, for simplicity purposes, for that organization purpose, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go ahead and do that for this classroom. So on the gear wheel, and notice I'm doing this in the classroom. There's settings in multiple different places. So this is specific to this particular classroom. And some of you might remember this. I know I walked a couple of you through this in the spring because we had found this and we thought that this would be very, very helpful. So I'm in this particular classroom, and then down here, kind of not halfway, but you do have to scroll a tiny bit. There's this classwork on the stream. And right now it's showing condensed notification, but you see my little friend, the shark tooth? Go ahead and click on that. And then what I want to do, and this is what I suggest that you do because it will help keep that area very clean, is to click on hide notifications. And then unlike most everything in Google, you do have to click the save button. So make sure that you do that. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And now any assignments that I create or that I put in classwork, it's not going to show up here. I'm going to leave this very clean, very simple. I'm going to leave this so that it is truly a place for announcements, something that I want to share out with the kids, or maybe it's a question that I want to ask them that day. So then I'm ready to jump into classwork. And then here's where if you're a pre-planner, I'm a pre-planner. I love pre-planning. I love writing things down, having it kind of structured. But the cool thing about Classroom is that when you create these topics, they don't show up until you actually put something in there. So it's pretty cool. So I'm going to go ahead and get my classroom organized. And this is something that you guys can go ahead and do in your own Google Classroom. Click on create, and then you're going to create a topic. So I'm just going to go ahead and think about our calendar for this upcoming, and I'm just going to tackle first quarter, right? I'm going to do these in chunks of time, and I'll explain why in a moment. So I'm going to call this one week of September, spelling, not my strong suit necessarily. September 8th through, let's see, that's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 8, 9, 10, 11. So then I'm going to add that. I, as the teacher, can see this over here. I can see it right here. There's nothing there. And notice it's got this little message here. Students can only see topics with published posts. So something has to actually be in there in order for the kids to see it. And then I'm going to repeat. So I'm going to go ahead and create, see, I'm telling you. September. So that would be, and here's where a calendar really comes into play very nicely. 8, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19.
Sarah,
I looked away for a second, so I got the first one. So when you go to create again, you're, topic, right? We
Create
click
and
topic.
making these as topics.
Gotcha. Sorry.
You're good. So I'm just going to go ahead and create one more week. You could do this as many as you want. And I apologize if these dates are not 100%. I think they are. And notice it's going to continue to say, you can only see topics that are posted. So the kids can't see any of this, but you're going ahead and you're creating this structure. Go ahead and do that now because you can. Save yourself that time later. Now, what we had also talked about is keeping the most current at the top. So right now that's backwards, right? So a nice thing in Classroom is, notice how when I hover over it, it's like a whole big box now, a whole big rectangle. I can click and I can drag this around. I can move these topics however, whenever. The skinny snowman, my little skinny snowman friend over here, you can move them up, down. If, especially when you start to get a little bit more in there, it's less scary in a way. You don't end up accidentally dropping it in somewhere if you just move up or down. And again, it's a click of the button, one drag of the button. So that really does help with the organization. Again, kids can't see any of this until you actually post something there. So if you plan out, great. Yes.
So the last thing we had to save, I don't see anywhere to save this. So as we create these, it automatically saves. Is that correct?
It automatically saves the topics. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Any other questions? Because I am terrible at keeping my eye on the chat when I am doing this. Feel free to unmute yourself if you would like and ask. We good? Okay, so another thing, Trish talked about it. It's at the very, very bottom. It's totally optional. I feel very strongly at the elementary level that you can go a long way in helping your students, because obviously we're going to have the kids that are learning to read, are struggling with learning to read. They're more in that. When you get into middle school, high school, hopefully, like we've all done our jobs fantastically. I know that we work really, really hard, but they've got definitely more skills, right? Because they've been in school for a while. But when you create assignments, here, I'm going to share two big tips with you. Use numbers. Even our littlest learners can recognize numbers a little bit faster than they recognize letters or they recognize words. And here's something that we don't always think about. Have you ever really looked at the keyboard on a Chromebook? Are you aware that it's all lowercase letters? So if we're trying to help students identify words or letters, thinking more K1, if we start capitalizing things and they're not strong in that yet, because maybe it's not appropriate for them to be strong in that yet, they can't match that up. So think about that for your students. You know who your struggling students are. Think about these things that we just kind of forget about, right? But one thing I like is if you were to use numbers, because it's very simple. Okay, guys, I want you to do assignment 1 or assignment 12. It becomes an easier way of finding these assignments. Again, this is totally optional, but if you have it broken down by week, and then in each week, you've got 4 assignments, it becomes a very fluid help without the heavy lifting of the explicit instruction, which we still need to do. But if you say do assignment 12, you could also add in math activity or math matching or spelling words. Use that as well. Don't just name it with the number, but numbers become a simpler, logical order. Again, not only for our students, but also for our. Keep that in mind.
Sorry,
Another-
I have a quick question. Would we start our numbers over each week? Or
No.
do you keep going?
I would not.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Echo on my, it's thrown. If you think about that, if you have a week of 8 through 11, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then you do week of 14 through 18, and then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're telling the kids go back in and find assignment 4. You might go, well, like which week are we talking about? So just keep that in a very, and that's why I have the 3 numbers there. Not that any of you are going to have 100 assignments. Let's be real. I don't know. Maybe you will. I don't know. But if you do that, it just becomes a very simple structure. Now, this is a fun one. You ready? So numbers, you get your weeks, number them. It's a good idea. That's not one of the requirements. You absolutely do not have to do that. But here's one that I really think, especially for our little ones, they're very visual. It's pretty nice to be able to do this. I like this website called Copy Paste Emoji. There's plenty of websites out there. Pick your favorite one. It doesn't really matter. But if you associate some sort of emoji with your content, especially for our little ones, it can help. So if I type in math, you might want to do a plus sign. Not sure the kids would recognize an abacus. Science is another great one, has a lot of good sciencey things. So then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to like select over it, copy. Paste it in there. Guys, you're doing assignment 12. It's got a little microscope on it and it's called blah, blah, blah. So I'm just going to go ahead and assign. I got my students over here. I'm going to go ahead and assign this. Now, notice you're like, well, Sarah, it's not in anything. Oops, I forgot to put it in a topic. Okay, so let's take this and we can drag it down, right? I'm just pulling it down in there. And now it shows up there. And again, for our students, especially the younger you go, it becomes a little bit more visual, makes it a little bit easier for them to find their items. Another thing that I know I've had a lot of requests for, and I do want to wrap into this course organization, is the ability as a teacher to see a student view. It's not built into Google Classroom yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm creating fake students for every grade level, and I will be sharing those out so that each grade at each building, so Elda's second grade is going to have a different one than Morgan's second grade, but you can have that fake student in there in your Google Classroom. That fake student's not going to be in any of your programs, but then you can see what it looks like from a student view, because I think that's a really valuable view for teachers to be able to see. Keep in mind, like your whole grade level is going to be sharing that fake student so that you can better see like what they're seeing. Also might help you do a little bit of troubleshooting, whether your students are in front of you or they're at home or we're all remote, whatever those situations are.
Sarah, I have a question.
Yes.
On, so you just put assignment number 12 under there.
Mhm.
Do you think like under each week, should you have like a math folder that they see and I don't know, phonics folder, and then number 12 would be under there? Or do you recommend just list them underneath there and not group them like that?
Well, here's the thing. You can't make subfolders in Classroom.
Okay.
It's the topic and then the stuff underneath it. That's where I think, Kristen, the icons become very helpful. If you use that icon to associate every math lesson and you associate some sort of icon with your phonics. Now, don't go wild and crazy. Again, keep in mind, simple, but you can't have
The
some
idea is the kids are going to come to week September 8th through 11, and they're going to see every assignment for that week is just going to be listed there, and they'll click on it. So if I want to give an explanation or something on that assignment, I like embed a video in there.
Well, I'm back in the editing piece.
Okay.
So over here, you can assign it a topic. I didn't do that at first, so that's why I drug it down. Here you have, now I would definitely give this a title. And then here's where you can put in instructions.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense.
You can also add items if you would like to this particular assignment. So we'll dig in a lot deeper to this part of it on Friday. So come back and join us on Friday when we talk about collecting digital work and all that kind of stuff. And then also we'll touch on it in grading. And if you're a K1 teacher, knowing that this is all new to you guys, we'll also cover this in our K1 session as well.
Okay.
Yeah, you can add in a lot of information here. So
All right. Sounds good.
directions. And we'll save that. Okay, so when the kids click on it, so they've got that extra right there. All right, I think we're almost done with our breakout room time. Do you guys have any additional questions that I can answer?
Sarah, when we, in prior years, when we switched for math, we obviously had our homeroom Google Classroom and then a math Google Classroom. And this year I was contemplating whether or not I wanted to do that since I'll be keeping all of my kids all day. Do you suggest that we go ahead and just create a separate one for math to keep it maybe a little cleaner?
That's a great question, and that does involve course organization. You have to understand your students' age and then their background. So as a third grade teacher, as a second grader, they used Google Classroom consistently all year long. They have a background in it. Our first graders have no background in it.
Yeah.
So your third graders, and this is where, Duana, I would totally defer to your understanding of your students, of your grade level. I've never been a third grade teacher. Are they at that point where they could totally understand if they went to Google Classroom and they see a reading class and a math class and a whatever? If you feel confident that your kids are capable of doing it, rock on and do it. If you go, you know what, I don't know that my students, or maybe that I'm ready to divide it up that much, go with one. Here's a tip. You don't have to keep any Google Classroom all year long. And in fact, maybe at the quarter break, it's a nice time to say, you know what, grades are done. All this work is done. I'm not gonna grade it anymore. So I'm gonna archive that class and we're gonna start fresh.
Okay.
And then if something didn't work out well, it's a good time to adjust. You know, guys, we're always improving. We're always learning. We're moving forward with this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to broadcast a message. And see if I get one back. I don't think I will. So that we can rejoin, because I'm looking at the time. We've got like 3 minutes left. But stick around at 10:30. We'll be back on and we'll be talking about creating an online community. We have some fun activities, perhaps, to try stuff out. And while we're waiting, I'm not getting any messages from them, so I'm wondering if they're ready. You know what? Let's just end the breakout rooms. That's the fun of being the host, right? And we're going to close all rooms. Makes me a little nervous. I don't want them to get angry. Well, they're coming back, people. If they don't like me, we'll hear it. It's okay. They have 45 seconds. Welcome back, RMS, RHS, if you're already back in here. I've never done a breakout room before either, guys. This one a little smoother than the whole live streaming, I feel.
That was my next, I was going to ask you, are those difficult to do if you're the host? Because I was considering trying those.
It was not difficult, other than making sure that I knew who everybody was. And since we have some new staff, it becomes that question of, do I know what building you're in?
So you had to like assign them to which room?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Sarah, I was going to ask you if you needed my help when you were struggling with the technology piece of getting it on YouTube. I didn't know if you'd need my help, but I thought it best just to let it play out.
I needed everyone's help at that point. I promise you, like, I'm like, I had the tab muted, I had the video muted, and I'm like, why am I still here? I was thinking a little. I know my face was red.
All I could think was, well, I can't help you.
And then I muted myself, but I'm like, Robin, help me. Guys, we'll make it. We're here. We're doing this together.
I think we're all back in here, Sarah. So whenever you want to.
I hope you didn't mind that I just ended it. I looked at the time and I'm like, oh, we're almost
Thanks
out.
for that.
Nope, that was fine. We were good
Okay.
too.
So we're all back together. I know probably there are going to be more questions, and guys, like, just know, like, reach out to Robin, Trish, myself, Becky, talk to your colleagues. We can all absolutely help. You know that I don't have it all together, clearly, from today, but I'm learning. I promise at 10:30 we'll be a little bit better. I'll know that extra tab opens up. Robin, I'll get you later. You didn't tell me about that. Leah, I'm sorry, I just saw your message. Sorry. Anyway, so it's 10 o'clock. We want to be respectful of your time. Give everybody a little bit of a break. We're coming back at 10:30 to create online communities. I do have, no, okay.
I want to jump in here real quick and just remind everybody that this session has been recorded. So I know, at least for the Schoology part of it, if you want to go back through and rewatch Robin's tutorials on how to do those, I'm sure Sarah had some great ones in there too. This will be posted in a Learn course and linked on our agenda. So after each one of our courses this week, the join link will be replaced with the link to go to the actual recorded session. It'll be in TLH, it'll log you into there, and then it'll go to that whole course, and it'll have resources and everything else that are ready to go. So feel free to watch this again, watch parts of it again. And if you miss anything later this week, everything's going to be recorded and added too. So it was great to see everybody.
And I hope everybody comes back at 10:30.
Yay.
Robin, Becky, anything to add before we finish?
Nope. Thank you. You got this.
Nope, nothing for me.
Yep. Great.
Okay, Robin, I end it here first. Yes? No.
Sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Love the